Curators, welcome back to episode 14 of the Yarn Curator Podcast. My name is Naomi. Welcome to my space where I like to talk about primarily knitting and the fiber arts. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I am the Yarn Curator on Instagram, and then I am House of Cardigans on Ravelry. If you're a new viewer, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here today. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Happy to have everyone as welcome here in this space. And yeah, to just jump right in, sorry it's been a while since I filmed everyone. Life has just been really busy in February, and I haven't really had a chance to sit down and record probably in about 2.5, 3 weeks. My in-laws were in town, and then I've been trying to take care of, like yearly routine health things, so eye exams, dentist appointments, all that fun adulting stuff, so yay. So yeah, we're just gonna jump right in. I've got a full list of show notes for you guys, and I'm really excited to return to chat with you guys again. So if this is your first time watching, you may or may not know that my sister Zoe, who has the Felicity Yarn Studio podcast, her and I are co-hosting a knit along, although last night I was thinking I'm going to change it to a create along, so it still works as a Cowl, it's just a CAL now, and it is essentially a stash down. So we have called it New Year Old Yarn, KAL, and yeah, if you'd like to participate in that, it's really loose, open to everyone. The idea is just to use yarn in your stash for projects. Whips are welcome. You can knit, you can weave, you can crochet, you can sew. It doesn't matter however you want to create the object. Just use something that you had in your stash before 2020. So if you would like to participate in that create along, we do have a Ravelry group. It is the Curated Felicity group on Ravelry, and that is co-moderated by Zoe and I. It's a joint podcast group for both of our channels, and we also will be pulling a winner from Instagram using the hashtag New Year Old Yarn KAL. So yeah, I think that's about it for admin-y type things. I'm going to jump right in, and even though I've been gone a while, and I have to apologize about the car alarm in the background, I said this in my last episode, it is the last little bit of nice weather here in Florida where I live, and so I'm just trying to enjoy it while I can. It's like a balmy 80 something degrees today, I think. It's actually been pretty cold the last few days, so you never know. Yesterday I was wearing a hoodie when I went outside. Today I'm sleeveless because Florida. Which I feel like everywhere has unpredictable weather, but especially so in Florida. Except give it 2 months and then it will just always be hot. It will be hotter than Hades, hot AF, you name it. It will be that hot until November. Then it will become very predictable. Now that the airplane has finished flying over, I think I'm going to start. I don't have any finished objects for today, but I should have some for the next time I film, hopefully. So starting off with whips, you guys, I'm going to be showing you something that I showed on the first time last episode, which is my Tiger Owl Cowl. It's a free pattern by Greg Cahoon, and it is the free pattern in association with the Carolina Fiber Festival. That event's happening in about 2 weeks, 2 weekends from now. I will be flying up there to meet my mom, my sister, as well as my knitting aunts. And so yeah, we've all rented Airbnb for the weekend, and we're gonna have a lot of good fun. It's a really neat festival, very craft inclusive. They have classes for everything from crochet, knitting, spinning, weaving, really encompasses the fiber arts really well. And yeah, it's a free festival to go and attend the marketplace. The classes, of course, cost money, but I am not going to be taking one. I have to apologize for the background noise. Apparently one of my neighbors decided a Monday afternoon was the time they wanted to go out and weed whack. So here is my Tiger Owl Cowl. I did not have much to show in the last podcast episode that I filmed because I had only done about one of the repeats. So as you can see, it makes this really cool face detail here, and then there's a cable breaking up each of the lace sections. So I just finished my 4th repeat on this pattern, and I will be jumping into the final one here probably after I finish filming, and hopefully I'll be finished with this in the next night or so. That way I can get back to other knits that I'm really into. I am knitting this out of, I just dropped this and we just had to take out this palm tree because it had a lot of root rot, but it makes a great table. But in the interim, there's a bunch of like sawdust down here. So I am knitting this out of La Bien-Aimée. It is in the pink granite colorway. Zoe picked this up for me the last time she was at Black Mountain Yarn Shop, and I'm really excited. I think I'm probably gonna have between 50 to 40% of the ball left over. So I've already been thinking about what scrappy project I can incorporate this into. Maybe with the leftovers from my Elton cardigan, which was also knit out of La Bien-Aimée in a pink semi-variegated speckled pink creamy color. So I think they'll go well together, and I probably have about 50 grams of that left over as well. I did just notice though when I was pulling this out of my project bag, unfortunately I have dropped one of the eyes. I dropped a stitch at some point when working this decrease, so I will have to do a little bit of surgery there to mend that. And I'll be honest with you, when I make mistakes in lace, I just kind of fudge fixing it. By no means do I consider myself an expert. And before I did that, I was going to brag about how I didn't think the lace on this was too bad. I mean, it's definitely in depth and you have to concentrate when you're doing it and pay attention to your rows. I know my mom and my aunts really struggled with it and making sure they didn't forget yarn overs, so their stitch count was where it needed to be in between each lace row. I haven't experienced too many of those difficulties, but apparently in my haste to finish that last round this morning, I made a little bit of an oopsie. But I think I can fix that pretty easily. It looks like an SSK that got dropped. So yeah, really enjoying this knit. Also ready for it to be done. Just because there's like 50 other things I want to knit right now. And this is living in my Twist project bag, who will also be vending at the festival. May pick up another project bag from her. We'll see. So this next whip is an oldie but a goodie. This is the sock that will never end. If you've been a long-time viewer of the podcast since like the beginning, you will recognize my X socks. It's a pattern by Leeni Ho. I have legitimately been working on these for almost a year now. Sock knitting is just not really my jam. I am a big enough person to admit that. And every year I try and give socks a go. And every year I knit 1 or 2 pairs and I'm like, it just doesn't do it for me. I do have to say, that being said, this is my first pair of toe up socks that I've ever made, and I do enjoy the process. I think of toe up better than toe down. I am just not a sock person, and I am okay with that. However, with my new schedule, I find it a lot easier to knit during my lunch break. A couple days out of the week, it's just a little bit freer. My coworker that I work now with primarily 5 days a week, doesn't talk to me during lunch, but it's just not the same. I mean, we have conversations through lunch, but I feel a lot more at ease knitting in front of her while we have conversations as opposed to some of my other coworkers. She's an artist, but with I would use like a capital A. She does a lot of beautiful watercolors and drawings and prints, so maybe it's just that connection that I feel a little bit more at ease creating in her presence as opposed to some of my other coworkers. But because of that, I have been able to get 2 repeats done of this sock pattern. So as I said, these are the X socks. It's a pattern by Leeni Ho. And yeah, I have about one more of this slip stitch detail repeat to go, and then I will start my short row heel and then work the cuff. I am knitting these out of leftover Felicity Yarn Studio. This is a custom colorway that my sister Zoe dyed for my mom, and I knit her a Sunset Highway out of this. This was the main body color. So just using some leftovers from that. I am making these into shorty socks. So as you can see, one is done here. It's got this really cute slip stitch that then reverses and carries up the cuff. So I'm just doing these as little, you know, shorties using the Rose City rollers where it just curls down. And then this is some mystery gray in my stash. It is either, this is yarn that Zoe gave me, and this is either leftover Madeline Tosh or Knit Picks Stroll. I know it's one of the two. I think it might be Knit Picks actually, now that I look at it, because it's a little bit more of a plump high twist base than you normally get out of Mad Tosh. So that is what I'm using for my contrast heel. This is a paid for pattern. I don't think it cost very much. And I am knitting this on size 2s. US size 2, 2.75 millimeters. And these are some Addy Sharps. I bought these for the explicit purpose of seeing, well, for making socks, number one, and then for seeing if I liked Addies better than Chiagoos for needles. I do find these are a bit sharper than the tips on Chiagoo Red Lace. However, I think that the Chiagoo are plenty sharp in the long run, and they just have the superior cable at the end of the day. So if I were to be investing in another interchangeable set, because I do have an interchangeable set of Chiagoos, I would, actually no, I think these are Hayahayas. Either way, if you're looking for a set of interchangeable needles, I think I would still go with the Chiagoo at the end of the day. You just can't beat the flexible cable on those needles. So yeah, I'm hoping probably in the next week or two to finish these over lunch, and then I will figure out some new project to live in my office. All right, and then for my last whip that I would like to share with you guys is a new cast on. I had actually intended this to be the yarn I was going to use in my Whitmoor sweater, which is a pattern that just released by the little Tailoress on Valentine's Day. And my plan was to use 2 strands of Holst Super Soft held with mohair. However, when I was swatching that, I couldn't really get the proper gauge for that pattern, either held single or held double. And so when you have a swatch and it's not working, you just pick a different pattern that works with that swatch measurement. So I cast on something completely new. This is the Iskald pattern by Caitlin Hunter. It's one of her less popular designs, I think, or, you know, less well known. It's an oversized pullover with a raglan, and it features this cable detail that goes down the raglan. And yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm holding this double 2 strands Holst Super Soft with Lang Luxe Mohair. The Holst is in the Mariner colorway, and the Lang, I am not sure on the colorway name. So I have knit the entire body since we last spoke. As I mentioned at the top of the video, my in-laws were visiting from Texas last week, and so I knew everything else on my needles is really lace intensive at the moment, and so I wanted something that I could do in the evenings after work when I was pretty brain dead and wanted to be social and engaged with them, but I could still sit and knit on the couch while we're hanging out in the evenings. And so I cast this on. I think I divided my sleeves right before they arrived at the house and knit the body through pretty much most of their stay. And yeah, I've done some modifications on this pattern. I'm going to save talking about those that I did for a finished object video. But overall, I'm really pleased with it. The only thing at the moment that I wish I would have changed or done differently, I wish I would have made it just a smidge longer. I tried it on before I cast off, and I was holding it up against some other garments in my wardrobe and thought it was long enough, but then once I cast off, it kind of shrunk up a little bit, and so it's a little bit more, it's somewhere between like cropped and what I like, which is about mid-hip. It hits kind of more at the top of my hip, which is fine. It's totally fine. I might just aggressively block it lengthwise when the time comes, because one of the nice things about Holst and what makes it so affordable is that it is not a fully processed yarn, and part of that is the oil that they put in the fiber when they spin it is still contained within the yarn when you get it. So when you block it, you have to wash that machine oil out, and then the yarn will bloom and grow. And so I fully expect this to get a lot more airy once I wash it. That being said, this is super light for a garment so far. It is super light. It's super soft. And I can't wait to see how much softer the Holst gets after that spinning oil is washed out. It does have just a little bit of, the Holst has just a little bit of a toothiness to it. And so if you're really, really sensitive, you might not prefer this yarn. It doesn't bother me. And since this is meant to be worn with 10 inches of positive ease, I personally am kind of scared of that much ease in a garment, and so my gauge was a little bit bigger than the pattern called for in the beginning. And so since I had more stitches per 4 inches when I did my swatch, I went up a needle size to try and alleviate that, and then additionally I went down a pattern size than what's called for my bust. So I'm knitting this in the size small. I think if I did my math right, that should give me about 7 inches of positive ease when it's all said and done. And even that still seems like a lot. So I didn't even do the full number of increases required in the yoke. I just knit till I increased till I thought the raglan depth was going to be what I needed. So I've done a lot of modifications to this pattern to really try and get it to be a piece that works within my wardrobe. And as I said, I'll go really in depth with those modifications when I do a finished object feature on this pattern. And yeah, hopefully in the next week or so, I can knock out the sleeves on this one. I absolutely love the color though. The Holst is this really pretty inky blue that has just a little bit of green to it, and then the mohair itself is a little bit lighter, so it almost has this tweedy effect, which is really pretty. So I will show you guys really quick, just because it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to hold these up. So I bought 2 500-gram cones of this Holst. So I am just knitting directly from the 2 cones, and then here is the mohair. As I said, it's this really pretty deep blue with a little bit of a green undertone, and then the mohair is a little bit lighter. So if I hold those up together, that is what you get. But I'm really enjoying it. I think it's really pretty. All right, last but not least, I would like to talk to you guys about spinning. So in my last episode, I showed a couple braids that I was working on. I did finish spinning the singles for the spotted circus that I was working on. I just pulled it off my wheel. So I let those singles rest for about a week before finishing up the yarn by plying it together. And it's this absolutely beautiful kind of peacock colored yarn that just, you know, randomly barber pulls between the blues, the purples, the greens, and kind of chartreusey yellows. So this ended up being about 220 yards. I did not yet wrap it around a ruler to see how many wraps per inch I was going to get, but just looking at it, it looks like a fingering light, kind of between a light and a heavy fingering weight, depending on how thick or thin that particular section is. So it's really pretty. I'm really pleased with it. And once I finish filming, I'm going to go soak and snap this to set the twist. But really pleased with this spin. And the yarn is 100% merino wool, and it was an absolute delight to spin. As I said, this is from Spotted Circus in the Maleficent colorway. So that's it for spinning. So that is it for what I've been making, you guys. As I said, it's kind of been a really busy month, and that's all I've really had the time or energy to work on as of late. Between Mr. Yarn Curator starting his new job, family visiting, you know, kind of just dealing with the day-to-day of life and being an adult, there hasn't been that much time for knitting, or when there has been time, I've been too tired in the evenings to knit. So in turn, that does mean I've been doing a lot of pattern browsing in the evening. So I was just going to go through some dream knitting of what's caught my eye recently, you know, that I'm looking forward to being able to work on. So first up is, I'm going to mention maybe 5 or 6 projects. We'll see. I might decide not to include a couple. So first up is the Princess Fiona by Amy Miller. And it's a lovely, of course I don't have the pictures in front of me right now to describe it. So good planning on my part on that one. So I'm going to move on to the next one, but I will have inserted a picture of that other one. So up next is the Quill by Evie Scott. This is a really pretty cardigan. It features this really pretty kind of feather motif, and it really caught my eye as something that I would like to knit in the near future. Up next is, I've talked about these two in the past, and I will be casting them on soon. I have acquired new mohair for this pattern, and Zoe has dyed me up a sweater's quantity of fingering weight yarn to do my Whitmoor by Little Tailoress. It is out. I already have the pattern purchased. I am just probably going to be casting that on my way back home from North Carolina. So gotta do what you gotta do. I also really wanted to cast on the Trescao by Anna Dervout. This is something I talked about in my Make 9. It's a really pretty, you know, raglan with an eyelet detail and slightly cropped in length. I've also been looking at the Elf Mail jumper, and the designer's name is escaping me and I didn't write it down. So it's really pretty broken seed stitch across the whole body with a contrast in the raglan, cuffs, and hem. And I started swatching that the other night. Didn't really like my color combination, so I need to go back into my stash and play a little bit more. I think that's all I'm going to say for dream knitting right now. I could rattle on for hours about patterns I've been looking at though. So in other news, or kind of life dream knitting update rolled into one, as I mentioned, my husband, Mr. Yarn Curator, recently started a new job. He was previously working from home. He now works in an office setting, and it's really cold there. So he's requested that I knit him a cardigan that he can wear to work. Currently he has like a navy grandpa cardigan, that style from Old Navy that his sister gifted him a few years ago, and it's seen better days. Not only that, I think he just wants to be able to kind of proudly and sweetly wear something that I've made for him. So I have been pattern browsing, trying to find a good men's cardigan to be able to knit him. The main thing is I want to be able to make something that's either DK or worsted weight. That way I can kind of just crank it out quickly. So if you know of your favorite men's cardigan pattern, feel free to drop it down here below. Because when I am at the Carolina Fiber Festival in about 2 weekends, I'm probably going to be shopping for yarn for that. I had debated holding more of this Holst double for him, but it's pretty much the same color of his existing cardigan. So I think I want to give him something more like an oatmeal or a really soft gray, or maybe even a deep jewel tone green. However, I feel like the more neutrals will work more with his existing attire of button-down shirts. That is about it. As far as our house goes, we're slowly getting our spring garden going. We have about 10 containers full of tomatoes going in the side of the yard, as well as herbs, hot peppers. I think I'm going to see if Mr. Yarn Curator wants to put a couple lettuces in, although I think we're just missing the end of that season. Those are more of a winter crop here, but we'll see if we can get away with it. We're doing everything in 5-gallon paint buckets right now from Home Depot or Lowe's, because first off, we want to, we're novice gardeners, I should say. It's our first or second season. We grew some last year, tomatoes as well as other things, and had relatively good success. So before we tear up our side yard, putting in permanent planter beds, this is kind of our trial run. And yeah, I'm really excited to grow some fresh veggies. I can't wait to make like a salsa using our own tomatoes and jalapenos and things along those lines. So that'll be delicious once it all comes together. One of the great things about my in-laws being in town this last week was that they also helped us tackle some of the projects in our yard that are really hard to do between two people who have one day off during the week together. So if you watched my Vlogmas, you'll see the one day where I was out in the front yard weeding, and if you looked off in the corner, there was a giant plumbago bush that was completely overrun with weeds. Well, we decided just to take the plant out altogether, because that was the only way we were going to get at the carpet grass that had grown into the mulch bed in our yard. And so we cut the plumbago like way down to the root ball, and we're getting in there and slowly weeding it. And when my in-laws came, they were helping us continue that, but my father-in-law accidentally ripped the whole root ball out of the ground. So it's all good. It's a new chance to plant something new. I really am trying to convince my husband that we need to put an avocado tree right there, or because we have a lime and a lemon tree, an avocado tree would be great. Guacamole, anyone? So we'll see. It's going to be that, or potentially a banana, or some other kind of fruiting tree, most likely. And yeah, so it's time for a new opportunity. In addition to that, in my local area has been the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. It's an annual event that happens at the end of February every year. I only made it to 2 of the 9 yarn shops on the crawl this year. As I said, it's just been busy. So I had the chance to go to Winter Haven. It's about 2.5 hours from where I live in Central Florida. I went there with my aunts. We had a lovely afternoon, grabbed some subpar Thai food for lunch, but thoroughly enjoyed our time in the yarn shop. I think we spent close to 2 hours just walking around, shopping, looking at things, hanging out, and then as well as it was a really fun time just hanging out with them in the car. And then we also hit Stash Tampa. So my local yarn shop that I go to here is called Stash St. Pete. They have a second location in Tampa. It was my first time being in that store since it had changed hands from a different yarn shop owner, and it was not as good as Stash St. Pete. It's good if you live in Tampa and you need a local yarn store. You can get some good staples there, but I would definitely say there's more variety and selection within the St. Pete store. So that's just my observations. Unfortunately, I didn't get to head south of me. There's about 3 or 4 yarn shops that way that were part of the crawl. I just didn't have the time this year, but it's okay. I'll make my way down there this summer, I think, when at least A Good Yarn in Sarasota does their annual end of summer sale. And last but not least, for your Monday museum story. So as you guys know, if you're a returning viewer, I am a curator at a local history museum here in the Bay Area, hence the name, the Yarn Curator. So we are having an event in about 3-4 weeks at my museum. It's in the end of March, in which in 1995 it was the sesquicentennial for Florida. It was their 150th anniversary. As part of that celebration, they buried a time capsule to be opened 25 years later. Well, my friends, the time has come to open the time capsule. In an effort to make sure that everything was kosher within the time capsule that got buried, we have actually pre-excavated it, and this thing has been like the biggest ever. And I'm only laughing because it's so bad. It's been good for a lot of laughs, I'll say that much about it. It's kind of been a comedy of errors. When they buried it in the past, whoever at the time decided to put a bottle of wine within this time capsule. And so, as you can imagine, wine buried 6 inches in the dirt in a PVC tube probably isn't the best recipe for success. The cork had actually shrunk and fallen into the wine bottle, thus causing all of the wine to slowly spill into the rest of the time capsule's contents. And God knows how long it's been like that. Anyways, this thing stinks. It is the stinkiest, stankiest, nastiest smell I have ever smelled before. You know, just like I said, it's been a comedy of errors, and everything in it smells like this dank wine. So for anyone out there, if you homeschool and you and your kids are doing a time capsule, don't put a bottle of wine in it. In fact, don't put any liquid in your time capsule. Luckily, it was white wine and not red wine, so it only got soaked and stinky and not also stained. If you live in the Tampa Bay area and you want to come see the stank capsule get unveiled in about 3 weeks, come on down. But the good news is it's caused a lot of laughter in my workplace. So yeah, you guys, that is life. As I said, I apologize if the actual knitting content seems a little light on the ground. I'm hoping to be able to show off more as I'm able to get some more time as things return to normal. I'm hoping to get a video done hopefully next weekend before I leave for North Carolina. I will be vlogging my time at the Carolina Fiber Festival, so you can look out for that in about 2.5 weeks as well. So that's it, curators. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment down below, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button as well. I know I've mentioned this in the past, but once we're past 300 subscribers, I am going to do another giveaway. And yeah, the more you support my channel, the more I can push it out to other people. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoy your making, crafting, whatever brings you joy, and I will talk to you later. Bye! And oh no, I just found a drop stitch in here. Seriously.